Welcome to my GX Pack channel. I have many stories to tell you. Welcome to subscribe. After the death of the father-in-law, the mother-in-law felt she could not waste the prime of her life. I fell in love with a male streamer who walks the line. I'm selling my house and car to marry him. I strongly objected, but my mother-in-law tearfully complained to my husband. Mom just wants to pursue true love. What's wrong with that? Must the elderly devote their entire lives to their children and not live for themselves? No, why do you need to sell my RV for yourself? Song Xian is such a good man. If mom misses him, she'll regret it for the rest of her life. Son, you have always been filial. You won't refuse your mother, right? The mother-in-law is whimpering and acting coy with my husband, Mian Wu. Mian Wu, it's a bit of a dilemma, Mom. It's not that I don't want you to get married, but selling the house may not be the best idea. Mother-in-law was in a hurry to explain. Oh, Song Xian said his dream is to have a house of his own, and now that the dream hasn't come true, he can't marry me. I just wanted to sell the house and support him. He said the house will be in my name. Besides, we are a family since we got married. What's ours is yours. Mother-in-law said to Mian Wu expectantly and excitedly. Mian Wu seemed to have been persuaded. He turned his head and looked at me, and discussed. Give me this wish, won't you? I didn't expect Mian Wu to agree. I was simply stunned. A man in his 40s who is on the edge wants to get something for nothing, and the mother-in-law falls for it, but it's not obvious. How can a highly educated person not see it? I don't agree. This house was given to me by my mother. I won't sell it. Seeing my tough attitude, my mother-in-law's tears fell down one after another. Son, it seems that Xiaofan doesn't see me as part of the family, and my happiness is of no importance to her. Every time I have a disagreement with my mother-in-law, she uses this tactic. Mian Wu unhesitatingly stood on her mother-in-law's side every time, and this time was no exception. He put his arm around his mother-in-law's shoulder and comforted her, saying, Little Sail just can't bear to part with you. Don't worry, your son will make sure your wishes come true. He handed his pay card to his mother-in-law after saying that. The mother-in-law broke into laughter. I jumped up in astonishment, unable to believe it. Mian Wu, did you really give away all of our savings? What shall we do? We still have many places where we need money, and we have been trying to conceive a child recently. Don't you think you should be considering our future? Mian Wu disagreed with me and got upset. Don't you still have your salary? The money in my card is my salary, and I can spend it however I want. It's none of your business. The mother-in-law saw that Mian Wu was angry, and hypocritically handed the card back to Mian Wu. Mian Wu, maybe it's better to forget it. Isn't Mom being too selfish? Mian Wu put the card in his mother-in-law's bag, comforting her. Mom, what are you talking about? It's the selfish ones who only think of themselves, not you. He was referring to those last two sentences, and he was directing them at me. I stormed out of the room and slammed the door. I was walking on the road, and the more I thought about it, the more upset I became. Actually, my family's condition is quite different from Mian Wu's family. They don't have a house or a car, and their parents are not in regular jobs. He has been diligently working and saving since he started college, and I admire his diligence and ability to endure hardship. Even if he had nothing, I would not reject him. After getting married, they ate my food, lived in my home, and spent my money. Mian Wu said he had been saving his salary, and would use it later when they had a child. All the savings have now been given to my mother-in-law, and there is nothing left. I don't know what the point of this marriage is. Sitting on the park bench scrolling through my social feed, I came across a photo posted by my mother-in-law. Song Xian and the casual boyfriend cuddled together, intimately. This Song Xian has a shrewd look, his gaze at the mother-in-law clearly betraying calculation. I don't know what my mother-in-law sees in him. I only returned home when I could no longer continue walking. As soon as I opened the bedroom, I saw my dressing table in a mess. The jewelry box was opened, and all the jewelry was gone. Mian Wu came over, and I asked anxiously, Mian Wu, where is my jewelry? He said casually, my savings are not enough, so Mom took some of your jewelry. After all, You don't wear it, and it's just sitting there. My blood is boiling, and my chest is heaving uncontrollably. Through the jewelry box at his feet, how dare you move my things without my permission, you're a thief. I am in a state of hysteria, but he is remarkably calm. I don't understand, it's right that we children should pay for the elderly, why is it so difficult with you? I am exhausted, I don't understand why he can't see the problem with Song Xian. Don't you think that Song Xian is a scammer? A middle-aged man with greasy hair and powdered face, a smooth-talking flatterer, not only has nothing to offer, but also engages in shady activities online. How can he be a good thing? He snorted coldly. What's the problem? It's just that you're looking down on me with your dog eyes. So what if I don't have a house or a car? I don't have a house or a car either. Do you think I'm a scammer too? I knew that you looked down on me, that's why you gave me trouble, gave my mother trouble. My mother was right, you didn't treat us as family at all. I moved my mouth, but I had nothing to say for the moment. I've given him so much, and all my friends have joked that I'm a simp, but he hasn't paid any attention to it at all. My efforts are a joke. I stood there, deadlocked with Mian Wu. The mother-in-law returned excitedly at this time. I sense the atmosphere is not right. He went straight into the house without saying anything. I heaved a long sigh and walked towards another bedroom. I should think about how to proceed next. I considered divorce for the first time. I was just falling asleep when the phone rang and woke me up again. Mom's in trouble. It's all your fault, come up to the rooftop. I scrambled up and rushed to the rooftop, where a number of people had already gathered. I sank within. Mian Wu hurriedly stomped his feet and said, Mom, come down quickly. The mother-in-law wiped away her tears in distress. For Mom's sake, seeing you argue with Xiaofan, my heart is so pained, it's all my fault, I shouldn't have just thought about my own happiness. Don't worry about me, as long as you're happy, Mom would rather die. The mother-in-law's best friend could no longer bear it and indignantly said, We, as parents, have devoted half a lifetime to our children. Isn't it right for us to enjoy our later years? Some people are just selfish, and for their own sake, they can even force the elderly to jump off a building. She gave me a glance. I ignored the various glares, walked up to my mother-in-law. You've taken the savings and jewelry, and yet you still aren't satisfied. I won't sell the house no matter how much you fuss. The mother-in-law shook her head, crying bitterly. No, Xiaofan, I'm not trying to force you to sell the house. I really want you and Mian Wu to be happy. If I had known, I wouldn't have asked for anything, then you wouldn't have misunderstood and argued with Mian Wu. Woe is me, it's all my fault. She shouted at her best friend. You are not allowed to be rude to her. Xiaofan is just reluctant to spend money, and besides, as an outsider, I have no right to interfere with her house. I jumped off the building today and it has nothing to do with her. You are not allowed to blame her. I cannot fulfill Axian's dream, and I cannot marry him, so life has no meaning for me. She twisted her mouth, letting out a melancholy smile. Then one foot extended outward. The crowd exclaimed in surprise. I felt a great force suddenly push me down from behind, Mian Wu shouting loudly. Fanny G, if something happens to my mom, I won't forgive you. I felt a chill as I looked at my mother-in-law's determined expression. She not only wants money, but also wants to ruin my reputation. When the mother-in-law had half of her body leaning out, Song Xian arrived. The two people gazed tenderly at each other. Song Xian kneeled on one knee to confess his love. Even if no one blesses us, I still want to be with you. No matter what difficulties and obstacles we face, as long as we are united in heart, we will certainly be able to overcome them. The mother-in-law could no longer hold back. She threw herself into his arms and started to cry loudly. All present were moved, and my husband's eyes were also reddened. At the same time, I also became the evil daughter-in-law who forced my mother-in-law to jump off the building in everyone's eyes. Someone filmed the incident on the rooftop and posted it in the property owners group. My face was enlarged, and it's clearly visible. Let's rock the mic with passion. Marry a wise wife. If you encounter such a daughter-in-law, it is truly an unfortunate household. My daughter-in-law is the same, wishing to treat me like a cute little thing to boss around, unable to stand seeing me enjoy even a little bit of happiness. I laughed mockingly and left the group directly. I didn't expect this to have an impact on my real life. Those who have conflicts with their daughters-in-law have turned their spears towards me. This morning, as soon as I went downstairs, I was splashed with dirty water by the old lady on the first floor. Oops, sorry, I didn't see it. Although apologizing, the tone was not good. This is the third time. I pinched the bridge of my nose, feeling pained and powerless. I returned home and saw my mother-in-law and husband happily discussing something. She calmed down as soon as she saw me. Mom is getting engaged. I saw that the mother-in-law was holding a wedding invitation in her hands. Go on, congratulations Mom. Mianwu was very happy to hear this. My dear wife, you have finally realized it, that's great. He was too busy being happy to notice my soaked clothes. Just as I have given everything to this family, he has never paid any attention to it. I tugged at my lips. Mianwu, let's get divorced. Mianwu's face fell. I thought you had figured it out. What is this about? If your mother gets married, you want to divorce me. You're not even afraid of being laughed at. All right, don't worry about your mother's engagement. You should reflect on yourself. I don't want to argue with him. If he doesn't agree, then I'll sue. My mom hasn't been feeling well these past few days, so I've packed a couple of clothes to go visit her. I passed by the study and heard the mother-in-law ask Mianwu in a low voice how much money they had spent on her mother's illness. Her mother has a heart condition and her last hospitalization cost over 100,000. What? The mother-in-law started screaming. He then covered his mouth. Did it cost that much? All of it is my mother's retirement pension, no matter how much it costs. How dare you try to go after my mother? I suddenly spoke behind them, and the mother-in-law turned around, smiling a little embarrassed. You child, always overthinking. I'm just concerned about your mother-in-law's health. I returned home, and my mother probed me indirectly, knowing about the recent events. Since she fell ill, she has hoped that my husband and I would get along well, otherwise she would not be at peace when she is gone. So the mother-in-law arranged the engagement. She wanted to take the opportunity to improve the relationship between me and my mother-in-law, and she insisted on taking me to congratulate them. I didn't originally plan to go, but I couldn't refuse her. We arrived at the place, and my mother-in-law is on the second floor. My mom saw that I was not in high spirits, so she let me stay downstairs while she went to greet them. I don't want to see my mother-in-law either. To her surprise, about 10 minutes later, the mother-in-law suddenly came running out, crying. He snatched the knife used to cut the cake and held it against my neck, yelling at me. I know you don't like me, this mother-in-law, but what gives you the right to let your mother treat me this way? My husband was flirting with another woman on a joyous day. I can't go on living. I was stunned and had not yet reacted when I saw my mother running towards me with her hair disheveled and her collar torn open. In-laws, let me tell you, it's not what you think. It's that he came on to me and got handsy. You have to believe me. Song Xian angrily pushed away my mother. Minmin, don't listen to her nonsense. It's her who seduced me. She's old and ugly. How could I possibly be interested in her? My mom is in tears, and I'm furious too. I know my mom better than anyone, and there's no way she could have tried to seduce Song Xian. Others, however, do not think so. Song Xian's eyes are not blind. That woman is far inferior to Aunt Wu. It's not that her in-laws are teachers, so how could they do such a thing? You can know a person's face but not their heart. You don't understand. The more serious it looks, the more it plays flowers. I wanted to argue with them, but my mother got angry and upset, clutching her chest and fainting. I supported my mother and shouted for an ambulance. No one listened to me. Mianwu was busy comforting her mother-in-law, and the other relatives were just standing around watching, not one of them willing to help me. Only one waiter took pity on me and called an ambulance. My mother died because of severe emotional distress, which led to a relapse of her heart condition, and she ultimately could not be saved. Mother has passed away. My heart also feels like a piece has been torn out, leaving a raw, gaping hole. I don't know how many tears I've shed these days, or how many times I've regretted. The only one by my side is my good friend who just came back from a business trip. I once thought my closest husband was missing. On the day I went to the funeral parlor, my mother-in-law and Mian-woo finally showed up. They still felt it was inauspicious to stay at the entrance. After I carry my mother's ashes out, I saw them with their backs to me, not knowing what they were saying. I took a few steps closer before I could hear clearly. You don't understand, her mother is a bottomless pit. It's good that she's dead. Now we don't know how much money we'll save. I've heard that her mother still has quite a lot of savings. When the time comes, you should try to get your hands on that money. I'm also thinking of buying Song-sien a new car. What are you talking about? My voice is hoarse, like a demon crawling out of hell. The mother-in-law and Mian-woo were shocked. The mother-in-law hypocritically said, "Oh, I didn't say anything, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have gotten angry with the in-laws, otherwise it wouldn't have happened." The mother-in-law covered her face and screamed, "How dare you hit me?" I raised my hand and slapped him again. Mian-woo wanted to rush over, but was stopped by his good friend. "I will definitely get to the bottom of what happened that day, and if you have framed my mother, I will not let you off the hook." The mother-in-law was intimidated by my cold gaze and remained silent for a long time. I turned my head and said to Mian-woo word by word, "I want to divorce you. Get out of my house right now with your mother before I come back." Mian-woo did not expect me to be so resolute, and his attitude softened. "Small sale, I don't want mom to leave either, but that was an accident, and it was also because mom seduced him first. Fuck your mom." Before I could even open my mouth, Lin Lin had already interrupted Mian-woo. She spat, grabbing Mian-woo's collar. "You should take a look at that man's shameless behavior, trying to smear my aunt. Only your mother would find that kind of trash acceptable. If you dare to speak nonsense again, I will tear your mouth to pieces. Get away as far as your mother can take you." Mian-woo stumbled from the shove, raising his arm to retaliate. I scolded him sternly and warned him that if he dared to touch me, I would take him to the police. "The emergency call has already been placed." The mother-in-law, seeing that I had called the police, immediately dragged Mian-woo away. I settled my mother's ashes and went to the place where my mother-in-law was engaged. What happened that day is only known to the three of them. It is impossible for the mother-in-law and Song-sien to tell the truth. The only hope lies in the surveillance camera in the room at the time. The open villa is actually rented out for daily use. Only the first floor has surveillance cameras. The rooms on the second floor do not have any. I'm a bit discouraged. Without any surveillance, how can I find the truth? In that moment, I was again overcome by self-blame. If only I had accompanied my mother up there, she would not have been bullied, and she would not have left me. Lin Lin held my hand. "We'll find a way. There's no physical evidence, so we'll find witness testimony, and if that doesn't work, Song-sien and that old lady will be able to pry something open." I was moved by Lin Lin's resolute tone. "Yes, I can't get discouraged, there will always be a way." Lin Lin was worried about me and came home with me. My mother-in-law and Mian-woo didn't take my words seriously. They had no intention of leaving. I sneered and, together with Lin Lin, packed up all of their belongings. To speed things up, I hired 2 hourly workers to come to the location. After packing it up, I originally wanted to just throw it away, but seeing the community becoming more and more lively in the evening, I suddenly changed my mind. I discussed with Lin Lin and found an open space directly. Cheap sale. Clearance sale of second-hand goods, $5 per item, $5 per item. Although they are all second-hand goods, what my mother-in-law and Mian-woo wear and use are almost all bought by me, and the quality is excellent. Some penny-pinching old men and old women quickly gathered around. In a short hour, almost everything was sold out. Mian-woo came over and was surprised to see us. When he saw clearly that I was selling off his and his mother-in-law's belongings, he was furious to the point of death. I directly threw the remaining bit of junk at his face. "Fanny G, do you really have to be so extreme? I tell you, I won't leave, so you can forget about it." His face grew dark as thunder and he yanked my arm. Before he could take 2 steps, he was stopped by 2 burly men. Lin was worried about me and said that before the divorce, I needed to find 2 bodyguards to protect me. She moved quickly and personally selected 2 for me to send. I didn't expect it to be put to use so quickly. Mian-woo's face turned deathly pale as he left with a threatening remark, "You're ruthless." He walked away reluctantly carrying that tattered bag. After going back, I discussed with Lin. Lin, you run a media company. Do you have any connections with those internet celebrities? Can you help me look into that Song Xian person? She tapped her chest and agreed, "No problem, I'll take care of it." I gratefully grasped her hand, not knowing how to thank her. "Hi, we've known each other for over a decade, so let's not go there. Besides, my mom passed away early, and if it weren't for Auntie taking me in, I'd have ended up as a street kid. Auntie is like a second mom to me, so her business is my business too." After discussing with Lin, I temporarily set aside my concerns and proceeded with the divorce. I know that Mian-woo was not joking, he would not cooperate with my divorce. The statute of limitations is too long, I cannot wait. I clenched my fist and silently made up my mind. The game between people is about who can go further. If he is unwilling, I will force him to be willing. During the weekend, when Mian-woo had free time, I invited him to my home. As soon as I entered the door, Mian-woo had an "I told you so" expression on his face. "What, don't you want to leave?" I nodded. "You're right, I do feel a bit regretful." He opened his mouth. "All right, for your mother's sake who just left, I won't argue with you. As long as you apologize to Mom, I'll forgive you." I smiled and handed him a glass of water. He took it, drank it all in one gulp, his brow full of satisfaction. I stood in front of him, looking down at him. I regret that I didn't leave you earlier, otherwise my mom wouldn't have gone." He changed his expression, and unexpectedly as soon as he tried to stand up, his legs felt weak. He soon collapsed to the ground. He looked at me in terror, and lost consciousness the next second. By the time he woke up again, I have tied him up on the bed. You crazy person, what do you want to do? Let me go, Fanny G, you bitch, do you want to go to jail? How dare you kidnap me?" I struck him twice with a belt, expressionless. He shut his mouth honestly. I said, "I want to get divorced, but you're not cooperating, and I don't have any other options, so this is the only way. If you don't agree to it today, I won't let you go. It's up to you." I haven't forgotten to tell him, by the way, I've already told your mom that you're on a business trip, and I've also asked your company for leave, so no one will come looking for you. I disregard his resistance and seal his mouth, then have the bodyguard watch over him, and he can only eat, drink, defecate, and sleep on the bed. He couldn't stand it even for a day. He was uncomfortably restrained, yet still grumbling and complaining. "Little sweetheart, you wait and see, I don't believe you can kill me." "Ah!" I raised my arm and slapped him twice. He wouldn't calm down, so I just lashed him with the belt. He howled in pain. "I will not stop until you beg me for mercy." I grabbed his collar and said firmly, "My patience is limited, if you keep refusing, don't blame me for killing you." "You're crazy." "Yes, I'm crazy, anyway my mother is gone, I don't miss anything. Either we part ways, or we perish together." My resolute decision startled Mian-woo. But he still won't give in. "It doesn't matter, I can afford to wait." By the next day, he was already afraid. "Start begging me, my little Sale, we are at least a married couple, the fate we have cultivated for several lifetimes, can you be so heartless?" I walked to the bedside carelessly with a knife in hand. She looked like a madman with her disheveled hair. He swallowed his saliva and said stammered, You have come to your senses, let me go." "Ah!" I raised the knife and decisively struck downward, slicing a bloody trail alongside his cheek. He stared with his eyes wide open, as if his soul had been scared out of him. A foul urine odor emanated from below. He couldn't help but cry, shivering as he finally agreed to the divorce. "We have signed the divorce agreement, and as soon as the cooling off period for divorce is over, we can obtain the divorce certificate. I had the bodyguard escort him out, he didn't even dare to look at me, and fled in panic. Lin Lin is a little worried. Tie him up for a month, so as not to have too many nightmares. I comforted her, don't worry, this time he is really scared. By the time the month was up, Lin Lin was worried that Mian Wu would back out, so she specifically came with me to the Civil Affairs Bureau. I did not expect Mian Wu to come earlier. During the process, I deliberately exposed the knife in my bag a few times and then gave him a cold stare. He appeared calm on the surface, but was actually sweating profusely. He finished the procedures and left hastily without even stopping. Watching Mian Wu's back, I let out a long sigh. Unfortunately, Mian Wu did not get the money back that she gave to her mother. Half of it was yours. Lin Lin is a bit of a pity, but I shook my head. The divorce matter. The mother-in-law did not intervene from beginning to end, and one of the main reasons was that the money was with her. If I asked for money, it wouldn't be so smooth to leave. However, there's no rush. Once I get the evidence that Song Xian framed my mother, I will make them pay for it. After another half a month, Lin Lin finally had some news. She said that Song Xian has been getting very close to another borderline live streamer, Li Lang, recently. And it was also found that this Li Lang owed a lot of gambling debt and urgently needed money. We can start with Li Lang. Lin Lin and the general manager of Li Lang Company were schoolmates, and through him, we got Li Lang to come out. Seeing the obsequious manner in which Li Lang was serving tea and pouring water in front of me, I felt somewhat emboldened. To the point, without beating around the bush. You and Song Xian are good friends, aren't you? He paused for a moment and nodded. We'd like to ask you a favor and ask you about something. We can help you get promoted as an exchange condition. Hearing that, he was a bit excited, but he still asked calmly. What's going on? I looked into Lin Lin's eyes and said, did you go on the day Song Xian got engaged? He slandered Ms. Ji, saying that Ms. Ji seduced him. We want to know what exactly happened that day. I clenched my fist, trying not to give away my emotions. He didn't say a word, stared at me for a while, and then suddenly slapped his thigh, saying it's you. You are the daughter of the old lady who died that day. I know without asking, it was the two of them who killed your mother. Do you have any evidence? Although I was mentally prepared, when I heard the truth, I couldn't help but tremble all over. Of course I do. Lin Lin embraced me, negotiating with Li Lang. You're not friends with Song Xian, how could you tell us so easily? He scratched his head. Friends can be near or far. I've never liked that guy. When I'm with him I'm always looking for something to hold against him, so I can use it to extort money from him someday. Harm, the opportunity has come. He spread his hands and smiled a little smugly. He then took out his phone and played a recording. It's the voice of my mother calling for help. He stopped after just a couple lines. I'll do anything to make me famous. I didn't think much about it and immediately agreed to it with Lin Lin. After Li Lang left, I calmed down and felt a bit reflective. You can't judge a person by their appearance. I didn't expect they would just sell it so easily. Lin Lin has become accustomed to the unusual. Though they may act like brothers on camera, appearing to have a close relationship, in reality there is no shortage of underhanded dealings and backstabbing between them, all for the sake of traffic and money. They can turn on each other at any time. After all, they are all gamblers, so what kind of bottom line do they have? I nodded. Lin Lin's team worked through the night to develop several plans, she assured. Don't worry, we are professionals, we can easily make someone a star. She was worried that I was under too much pressure, so she did not let me follow up, but instead let me rest well. I couldn't refuse her, so I had to agree. But those two murderers are still happily in love, and I can't let it go. I remembered what Li Lang said that day. His mother-in-law had also flirted with him, but he didn't like older women, so he didn't take the bait. She's hooked. Since she likes to flirt with men so much, why don't I introduce her to one? I hired a younger and more handsome guy at the nightclub than Song Xian. As long as he can get money from his mother-in-law, we'll split it 3-7. I will tell him all of my mother-in-law's preferences and habits. The mother-in-law soon fell into the trap I had woven for her by hand. In a couple of days, the funds will be transferred. The man was extremely excited and worked harder than before. I can't translate that particular phrase into English accurately without more context. The phrase is an idiomatic expression in Chinese that doesn't have a direct English equivalent. It implies that someone is constantly trying to appease or manipulate their mother-in-law, but the attempts are unsuccessful and the mother-in-law remains dissatisfied or elusive. A more general translation might be, trying to appease one's mother-in-law every day, but never succeeding. Seeing that the conversation was going well, I asked the young man to invite his mother-in-law out to meet, because I just found out that my mother-in-law is going to hold a wedding ceremony with Song Xian. I need to prepare a grand gift for her. The young man also did very well. After meeting twice, he completely won over his mother-in-law. Wang Xiao, I really regret not meeting you earlier. It would have been so much better if you had appeared earlier. Wah, I'm getting married. Can you not abandon me? I love you the most, but I can't do anything about it. You'll be with me forever, right? Listening to the recording the young man brought back, I grimace in disgust. I let the boy wait for his mother-in-law for a few days, waiting for her to ask him to take the next step. My mother-in-law has fallen for the bait, and Lin Lin has also made significant progress on her end. Thanks to Lin Lin's packaging, Li Lang's follower count has been rising rapidly. After he stepped out of the small circle, we negotiated with Li Lang again. If you want to go further, you'll have to hand over the recording. Li Lang hesitated for a while, wanting to sign a contract with us, guaranteeing that we wouldn't turn our backs on him. We thought about it and agreed to it. The recording contains the complete record of Song Xian's physical assault on my mother. I was so angry that I was shaking all over. I will definitely bring this scumbag to ruin and disgrace. The date and address of the mother-in-law's wedding were told to me by my brother-in-law, who has gradually persuaded her to hand over more than 100,000 from her. To get him to cooperate with me, I didn't ask for a single penny. After all, I still need him to put on a big show at the wedding. The day my mother-in-law got married was a good day. Lin Lin and I went at just the right time. As soon as I entered the hall, I heard the host asking the audience below, "Does anyone object?" I shout loudly, "I disagree." The crowd was startled and turned their gaze towards me. The mother-in-law and the others had a confused look on their faces. Mian Wu frowned slightly, but did not dare to speak. I walked up to the stage and had the bodyguards clear everyone out. There was heated discussion in the hall, with Song Xian protectively shielding his mother-in-law, his face ashen. "You are a woman who has been thrown out. What are you coming here to cause trouble for? Get out of here quickly. If you don't leave now, I'll call the police." He wanted to get on stage and drive me away, but Lin Lin stopped him with bodyguards. I glanced at Song Xian. "Calling the police is a good idea. I also want to call the police and arrest you, you murderer." I didn't give them time to react, and played the recording right in front of everyone. After the recording was played, everyone looked at each other in silence. Only Song Xian and his mother-in-law changed their expression. I held the microphone and spoke to the audience below. "Dear all, on the day Song Xian got engaged, he falsely accused my mother of seducing him, and some of you were present at the time." I looked around the audience. Most of the people who were there on the engagement day were present. Everyone heard that he physically assaulted my mother, also slandering and defaming her, causing her to suffer a relapse of her heart condition, which led to her untimely death. I am going to tell everyone today that my mother is completely innocent, and it is Song Xian who is the murderer. He must apologize to my mother in front of everyone today. As soon as I finished speaking, the hall erupted in an uproar. The chatter and discussion of the crowd immediately drowned out Song Xian. Mian Wu was stunned, unable to believe the truth of the matter. He wanted to go forward but was stopped by the bodyguard, and could only stand there dumbfounded. I stared at my mother-in-law and Song Xian. I don't believe that my mother-in-law was unaware of this matter. Certainly, Song Xian was a bit flustered as he tugged at his mother-in-law, but she released the tight grip on his arm. She looked around at the guests, saw that most of them were criticizing, and some were even filming, so she immediately turned around. She frowned at Song Xian, muttering something under her breath. Song Xian suddenly let go of her hand, his face turning deathly pale. I narrowed my eyes, expecting Song Xian to say something, but to my surprise, he gritted his teeth and directly knelt down in front of me. I slightly turned sideways, and heard him say, "It was my fault. I was bewitched and frivolous towards your mother, and for the sake of face, I also framed her. It was all my fault. I deserve to die 1,000 deaths. Sorry." He was flushed with embarrassment, his whole body trembling. I didn't say anything for half a day, and when my mother-in-law saw me staring at her, she smiled awkwardly and said, "Little Sale, Song Xian said it was all his fault. Why are you looking at me like that?" She rubbed the non-existent tears at the corner of her eye, and said again, "Actually, it's my fault too. I was so upset that I misunderstood your mother without knowing the truth. Since we used to be family, can you please forgive me?" I closed my eyes and couldn't help but laugh coldly. "Whenever you see my mother, you should directly ask her for forgiveness. You are really broad-minded. Even though your husband did this kind of thing, you still stand by him. Those who don't know might think you are indulging him." Mother-in-law frantically waved her hands. No, that's impossible." She squeezed out a few tears and put on the air of a victim. I did not miss the hatred flashing in Song Xian's eyes. Li Lang told me when he gave me the recording that Song Xian also owed a lot of debt, and if it weren't for the money, he wouldn't be with his mother-in-law. He is enduring it now only for the sake of money. What if he finds out that the mother-in-law's money was given to someone else? I made eye contact with Lin Lin, and Lin Lin immediately made a phone call. I turned to Song Xian and my mother-in-law and said meaningfully, "I came here today to clear my mother's name. Since you have acknowledged and apologized, I have nothing more to say. Please continue." I stepped down from the stage. Song Xian and his mother-in-law loosened their expressions, directing the MC to continue the wedding ceremony. Just as mother-in-law and the others had just stepped onto the stage, the closing act performer appeared. He held a bouquet of flowers, wearing a suit, and called out his mother-in-law's name as he made his way through the crowd to reach her. The crowd was perplexed. As soon as I sat down, my butt got up again. The young man leaped up onto the stage, holding his mother-in-law's hand, his eyes filled with deep emotion. "Don't marry him. He's not worthy of you. I can't bear to see you marry someone else. Baby, come with me." The mother-in-law's face alternated between flushed and pale, not knowing whether it was from shock or fear. He was at a loss for words, stammering and hesitating. Before Song Xian could react to the fact that he had been cuckolded, he couldn't help himself and pushed the young man away, demanding an explanation. "What do you mean, you're hooking up with someone behind my back? Who is he? If you don't explain it clearly, I won't let it go," he shouted almost furiously, with eyes reddened. The mother-in-law looked left and right anxiously, seeing that Song Xian was about to lose control. She could only try to calm him down first. "I have no relationship with him, don't misunderstand." She then looked at the young man and winked at him, but the young man pretended not to see and also pushed Song Xian. "Who am I? I am her lover. How dare you do such a shameless thing and then question others? Do you deserve it? You're flirting with other women, your character is low and your morals are corrupt. You're not worthy of her at all. Get lost quickly and show some decency." Song Xian's face contorted with rage, and before the younger man could finish speaking, his fist was already flying out. The young man sidestepped, narrowly avoiding it. Seeing Song Xian's bloodshot eyes, ready to kill my brother, I signaled to the bodyguard. They came forward, appearing to stop the fight, but actually helped the young man escape. The young man shouted at his mother-in-law before leaving, "Dear, I just want to be with you. I don't want your money. I'm here today to pay you back the money. I will wait for you to turn back. We will be together forever." He threw a bank card at his mother-in-law and then fled as if he were flying. Song Xian became even more distraught after hearing the young man's words. He snatched the card from her, gripping his mother-in-law's shoulders tightly, and shouted hysterically, "How dare you treat me this way? I have sacrificed so much for you, and you give the money to that pretty boy. Lao Tzu, because of your bad reputation, if it wasn't for you, would I have dared to lay my hands on an old woman? You little cutie, may you not rest in peace. He exerted all his strength, and the mother-in-law's face turned deathly pale, being scared out of her wits. Mian Wu, seeing his mother-in-law being bullied, did not bother to calm the agitated crowd and ran over to pull Song Xian away. At this moment, Song Xian had lost his sanity. He forcefully pushed his mother-in-law to the ground, then turned around and got into a physical altercation with Mian Wu. The two collided, and sounds of clashing echoed back and forth. Mian Wu was quickly overpowered, knocked down to the ground, and could not get back up. Song Xian breathed heavily, and casually picked up the bottle of wine and walked towards his mother-in-law. The mother-in-law cried out loud, clasped her hands, and begged him, "Song Xian, I didn't mean to, don't be hasty. I will give you whatever you want, I will buy you a car, I will buy you a house, don't be impulsive." Just as Song Xian was about to smash a bottle, Mian Wu got up and hit him with a stick. Song Xian stumbled a few steps, tripped over the mess at his feet, and fell headfirst, hitting his head directly on the table corner and losing consciousness. The mother-in-law and Mian Wu were scared and collapsed to the ground. In the midst of the recent chaos, some of the guests in the hall hid to watch the excitement, while others left early. When they saw Song Xian bleeding and unconscious, everyone was afraid of getting into trouble, so they all left. I also quickly left with Lin Lin. This event later became a topic of discussion among people, and I also heard about the aftermath. Song Xian hit the back of his head. He is likely to be paralyzed. Song Xian's family members came to her house several times, scaring her mother-in-law, who kneeled down and promised to take good care of Song Xian in the future. But the matter is far from over. They also attended Li Lang's wedding and live-streamed the entire event. I found out the next day when I saw the video. In order to eat this human blood steamed bun, Li Lang live-streamed and connected with other internet celebrities to heavily criticize and insult Song Xian, and also revealed a lot of other negative information about Song Xian. At the same time, besides Song Xian, this live broadcast had the greatest impact on Mian Wu. His video of getting into a fight was widely circulated. His unit, in order to avoid being affected, transferred him to a different position, and soon after dismissed him. I went to see my mom with Lin Lin again. The person who framed her has finally received their just punishment, and it is hoped that her spirit in heaven can now rest in peace. I will place the flowers in front of Mom's grave, Lin Lin sighed. It's a pity that your mother-in-law didn't get what she deserved. You saw her reaction that day, and it was clearly related to her. Evil people have their own way of dealing with evil people. She won't be able to get rid of Song Xian, and she won't have good days ahead. We looked at each other, both of us feeling relieved. After that, we also cut ties with Li Lang. According to the agreement, we will help him increase his fans by millions, then we will no longer have any business relationship. After the termination of the agreement, Li Lang hoped to continue the cooperation, but both I and Lin Lin refused. He resorts to any means for the sake of traffic, and he will inevitably suffer the consequences. This person is not suitable for further cooperation. It has been proven that I was right about Lin Lin. Li Lang was later fined for tax evasion, and his account was also suspended. His disappearance then sparked another round of online harassment, but that's another story. Song Xian is bedridden, and his mother-in-law takes care of him with great difficulty. When he has free time, he starts fighting passionately with his younger brother. The young man took 30,000 yuan from his mother-in-law on the pretext of needing money for investment. He directly gave me half and said he would stop. These 2 days I've been able to see her son. I feel he's got his eye on me. While he still doesn't know, it's better for me to run away. I was a bit surprised that he was still quite lucid. I calculated Mian Wu's salary and saved up about 500,000, which was basically wasted by my mother-in-law. It's fine, you can't push people to the brink, otherwise it will backfire. The young man fled overnight, and before leaving, he sent me a message. Sister, if there is this work again in the future, remember to come find me, okay? I'll give you a discount. I was at a loss for words. Life has returned to calm, and I have found a new job to start a new life. Although I haven't seen my mother-in-law and Song Xian for a long time, they have always been the subject of idle chatter and gossip among friends. Song Xian was originally completely paralyzed, but later on, somehow his upper body was able to move. Every day I argue with my mother-in-law, and I'm often reported by the neighbors. The mother-in-law is stubborn and unyielding. It is said that one time when she brought the father-in-law home, they were caught by Song Xian, who directly threw a knife at the mother-in-law's face. The mother-in-law cried for 2 days, and cried until the neighbors called the police to report the disturbance. Since then, it has been common to hear that the mother-in-law has been abused at home, reported to the police, and the matter has been dropped, only to be abused again and reported again. Back and forth a few times, the alarm is also useless. Mian Wu, unable to tolerate her mother-in-law's absurd actions, directly drove Song Xian and her mother-in-law out of the house after learning that the money had been squandered by her mother-in-law. The mother-in-law publicly scolded him for being unfilial, but he retorted each of her accusations. The mother-in-law still wants to gain sympathy from everyone, but her reputation is too bad, and no one pays attention to her. My friend sent me a video of them cursing on the street, and when I watched it, I was only reminded of the scene where they plotted against me before. It's really ridiculous. The so-called maternal love and filial piety are no more than this. In the end, the mother-in-law could only flee hurriedly with her bag. Song Xian was thrown out on the street and no one cared. I heard that later they called Song Xian's family members to take him away. Mian Wu came to see me a few times after driving away his mother-in-law, hinting at reconciliation. I bucket of cold water down, painfully beat the drowning dog. He chased him with a knife for 2 kilometers, frightening him so much that he never dared to come back. Later, I worked with Lin Lin again and moved to another city. That trash of a family can forget about coming near me again.